I'd like to call the Humboldt County Board of Commissioners special meeting to order. It is August 12th, 11 a.m. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please join me.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
We'll begin with public comment. Is there anyone in the public who would like to provide comment to the commission?
Yeah.
If so, please do so at this time.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Abel Darrell, Novice Assistant County Manager, HR Director. For purposes of the record, I have here Ms. Carol Lynn. She is our new emergency manager, so she made a trip. I want to formally introduce her to the board. Come on up.
Come on, go ahead. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
I don't know what you want me to say, other than I'm looking forward to the opportunity. I have been a lifelong educator, so I've been in education for over 40 years. I've just retired from the school district. Been in Civil Air Patrol for over 16 years. Been teaching FEMA courses for, I don't know how long, really long, both in person and virtual all across the country. So I have worked through Civil Air Patrol with the Sheriff's Department here. I'm really looking forward to this opportunity. So, thank you.
We're looking forward to having you, and thanks for taking the position at a time when we were really searching for someone. So thank you, and
You're welcome.
look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming by.
Okay. Is there any other public comment? If you're on the phone, press *6 to unmute yourself. Not looking like there is any other
None.
additional.
No.
So that takes us to item 4, the county manager office request to approve broadband infrastructure program grant funding and partnerships. Consideration, discussion, and possible action on the following requests from Abel Del Real Navarre, Assistant County Manager, Humboldt County, or Human Resource Director. Item A, which is a request for Humboldt County, Nevada, a political subdivision of the state of Nevada, to enter into a covered partnership with Zito Media, a provider of fixed broadband service, in an effort to qualify for applying for a grant opportunity by the National Communication Information Administration, NTIA, of the U.S. Department of Commerce, that will pay for broadband infrastructure and authority of Dave Mendiola, County Manager, to effectuate the necessary documents pursuant to this grant. Pursuant to this grant, a covered partnership is defined as a partnership between a state or one or more political subdivisions of the state, and B, a provider of fixed broadband service. The terms of the covered partnership will be in accordance with the requirements of the grant. This is for possible action. So we'll take item A and then move on to.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Del Real Nava.
Okay, Abel, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Abel Darrell, Novice Assistant County Manager, HR Director, for purposes of the record. So I just want to go back to the genesis of why we're here today. So about 3 or 4 years ago, we formed the Humboldt Broadband Action Committee with local business leaders, mining interests in the city of Winnemucca, to find and develop solutions to address the lack of fast, reliable, sustainable, and scalable broadband in the city and county. As part of that, as part of forming the group, we did send out a community survey back in 2018 to kind of gauge how the sentiment of residents as far as their satisfaction with the coverage they were getting already by providers for internet service. And we did have 335 respondents as part of that survey. 60% were dissatisfied with their current service providers. 80% responded to experiencing high buffer rates, meaning you're trying to load a video, a web page, anything on the internet, you're waiting for it to load. And so they experienced significant amounts of that, and we still do today. And I think the most telling part of the survey was that 98% called for government action to attract better broadband service to the region. So that's why we're here today. That 98% for me was a mandate from the public to work towards solution to addressing broadband concerns. And we've looked at various ways we can, short of the county and city building out their own infrastructure, which I don't believe we want to get into. We don't want to get into competing with local interests. We have researched various grants. The problem with that is that we've never qualified for anything up until today because they had median income restrictions. And because of the industries that we're fortunate to have in our county, mining, agriculture, construction, they pay well. And so we never qualified for those grants. The difference with this one, the Broadband Infrastructure Program 21 by the NTIA, is that it doesn't take into consideration income. It takes into consideration what the average speed is for internet service. And our area is well below the FCC defined definition of broadband, which is 25 megs, which itself is outdated, as we all know. And so I was excited on June 16, 2021, we were notified of the grant by Brian Mitchell. He's the director of the Governor's Office of Science, Technology, and Innovation. I believe I have that acronym right. Yes, Science, Innovation, and Technology, about this grant opportunity that would help pay for broadband infrastructure. And as part of, we looked at the requirements of the grant, and the grant requires that the county or political subdivision of the state partner with a local service provider of fixed broadband internet. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here so I can bring that up. So you could see here, item 7, the grant wants us to be able to demonstrate scalability to future technologies in order to be competitive. So it has to be adaptable to 5G internet, telehealth, the Internet of Things. So new applications and technologies that are going to communicate with the internet. You could think of it as smart appliances, smart infrastructure that's connected to the city infrastructure, like roadways. And so you can see that there, that will be scored higher. So in order to be fair, and I did send that out in my staff report, we did reach out to various local providers to solicit interest. And we heard back from one, which was Zito Media, who currently offers, I believe, the fastest and what could be defined as broadband service in the areas that they cover. So we quickly set up a meeting with the state, the OSIT, Zito Media, and the county to discuss whether or not this was feasible. And it was, and I've been very impressed by the response that we've gotten. They've been very responsive in getting us information, as have we. And so we're here today to, ask for your support in applying for this grant so that we can expand broadband access to, roughly about almost 900 new residents in the county. And so with that, I would like to pass it on to either Joe or Mark from Zito to maybe discuss this further from your end, and maybe discuss the proposed area that we're looking at as part of this partnership to build out new infrastructure where there currently isn't any broadband infrastructure in Humboldt County.
Mark, this is Commissioner Cherry. Floor is yours if you'd like to expand further on Abel's presentation?
Sure. And Scott Neff, who's my boss, he's a vice president in our company, has joined us. And there's a lot of questions that he can answer and things that he can address from our company and what we do. What I'll try to do is take some time to show you the project areas from the map. And Scott, I think I'll leave the rest for you. So I don't know how you want to handle this, Scott. I'll let you start.
Go ahead. Well, I guess while you're pulling that up, well, one, thank you for the opportunity to be here and for the opportunity to participate in this. One of the things when we did meet that we shared with Abel and some of the other folks in the initial meeting is, in addition to this expansion, there's several things also that Zito's doing on our own to upgrade and improve services within the current serviced area of Winnemucca and Humboldt County. One of those is, one of the challenges with our services in that area is being able to find carriers willing to give us diverse access for the internet delivery into that system. Up till now, we've had one carrier, which I believe was AT&T. So if we had any outage from that carrier, all services within the area were down. All Zito delivered services were down because we had that single point of failure. We have secured a second connection, one going east, one going west. And we will be implementing that. Of course, takes time to get it ordered, but I would guess within the next month or two, we'll have that diverse connectivity into the market. So, again, now if one side of that has a fiber cut or a service area, we'll have a secondary connection into the market. And then beyond that, we are also investing in upgrading the local delivery system from the coax delivery system that it is today to a fiber to the home delivery system. Again, that's an investment that Zito is making on our own nickel to benefit and upgrade the services that we deliver to the folks within Winnemucca and Humboldt County. So wanted to make you aware of that. And so when we were approached by this grant opportunity, what we did was kind of engage with Joe and Abel and some of the local folks. And, I'll let Mark walk you through the details, but we've been able to designate six, we broke them into zones. I believe we have 6 zones that were, near our existing network that will allow us to, tie off of that existing network and build that fiber to the home infrastructure to, all residences and locations within that footprint. So, as we've gone through this, the process that we've done is, provided pricing and all the information to support the submission of this grant. One of the other requirements of this grant is a 10% match from the grant applicant, which, as partners in this, that would be, the county, the city, and Zito. And Zito has agreed that we're going to put in 15% of the amount that it would take to build this expanded network and deliver the services. Zito has agreed to put in 15% towards that. So I believe the total number was about $2 million, of which Zito has agreed to put in about $300,000. So our actual grant application will be for $1.7 million. So, once again, I want to make sure everybody understands that, we're very excited about this opportunity. And we're also putting, our skin in the game and our resources to work, not only for what I mentioned at the beginning of the call to get the diverse connectivity and upgrade services where we currently serve, but we're also putting money into this grant project to help make it a success. So I'm not sure if there are any questions, but Mark, maybe you can, quickly show a map, show the zones, the areas that we're talking about building to, and then I can help field any questions from there. But once again, thank you to the county, thank you to Abel, Dave, Joe, and all the participants that have been working with us to help put this together. We're excited about the opportunity.
Thank you, Scott. And I want to say thank you to the commissioners and your staff that you have. We have been very impressed with the work that you're doing. I was talking with Abel and Dave earlier today and pointing out the fact that there's a lot of legwork that needs to happen ahead of time in a county in order to even be on the playing field for an opportunity like this. And this is an incredible opportunity for Humboldt County and the Winnemucca area. And that effort that you commissioners and your team have done have really helped to move the football down the field. And I want to commend you for doing that. Well, let me kind of get down to the brass tacks of what we're talking about here. And the idea was to do as much as we can to serve as many people as possible in the Winnemucca area. Why did we pick Winnemucca? Well, these opportunities came up quickly. Again, we've been impressed with the city and the county and their response and their work ahead of time. So we've identified 6 different zones. And on this map that you can see right now, there you can see 4 of them that are actually listed. And we'll zoom into one area and it'll show you the other ones. But basically, there's a little piece up here to the northwest of the city, kind of extending. And the meaning of the map is all of the purple lines that you see right now, those are existing Zito service area. All of these people are enjoying the fastest internet that they've ever had in this area. And we've just done an upgrade, I believe, to DOCSIS 3.1, which gives us even more capacity. So that's these areas right here. The expansion zones are 6, and we've numbered them 1 through 5, and then you'll see a 9 up there. There are some other areas that we looked at, but because of the cost of it to reach those areas, this time around we had to pass them over. These expansions will bring fiber to the home to an estimated 796 homes in your county, which is going to be a game changer, first of all. The second thing is that it's a game changer from the standpoint of the technology that we're going to use. We're going to bring fiber to the home. And I like to say that fiber's it is the gold standard when it comes to internet technology, whether we are doing it or someone else. And our company has a vast amount of experience doing fiber to the business. I'm sure Scott will share the things we're doing in other places. We're based here in Pennsylvania. There's some important things that are going on. So 796 homes are going to have the benefit of a broadband technology that many in the cities, the bigger cities, wish they had. It is not only very fast and very powerful technology, it is future-proof. It is very scalable. So where we're proposing expansion is in the areas where you see these kind of orange lines throughout here. So there's a little one up here to the north. We're calling that Zone 9. And then here's your airport right here. There's Zone 4 and 5. But I'm going to zoom in over here to this area. There's actually 3 zones. And I'm not sure why this isn't coming up, but we are doing an expansion, as you can see, over in this area here. So these are areas that are currently outside of our current footprint. Our understanding and evaluating what is available when it comes to broadband is there really isn't much in the way of a decent choice in terms of speed. And the big issue is future capabilities. And let me take a moment to explain what I mean, what we mean. I like to think of networks, and these are networks. These are data networks that transport our voice services, and there'll be TV service, and of importance to the NTIA, internet service. Think of those networks as like a vehicular highway, okay? Have you ever been in a big city and the speed limit sign said 55 and you were going 3 miles an hour? Well, during rush hour, the problem isn't necessarily too many cars. Well, there is. The problem is there's just not enough lanes. And so the demand in terms of network traffic has been increasing, doubling every single year. So let's say you have a city and the city officials of a city of 1 million build a highway system that can take care of up to 2 million people. But let's say every year you doubled. So from year 1 to year 2, it went from 1 million to 2 million. Now you're at capacity. The next year it doubles, you're at 4. Next year you're at 8. That seems pretty crazy, and we'd go crazy in our counties and cities if that's what happened with vehicular traffic, but that is literally what's going on across America today. It isn't just more people using the internet. Each of us are doing a lot more. What used to be a computer tucked over in a computer is now, I've got this thing called a smartwatch. I'm not sure why they call it smart. We have our tablets, we've got our phones, we've got our computers, we've got our smart TVs. All of these devices use bandwidth, and that explains why in time it goes up, that data that's needed continues to climb. And if you have a technology that can move into the future and truly scale, then that's the one you want to work with. Fiber to the home is what we're proposing, and it's the gold standard. Not necessarily because of Zito, although we like to think that, but you get a good company that's deploying fiber to the home, and you just got the dream. You can't exceed the capabilities, and it is truly future-proof. I was talking with the gentleman who's in charge of our residential technical division. His name is Vito, would you believe it? And every time I see him, I say, "Hi, Vito from Zito." He's a fellow with a lot of experience in this business, I think 40 or 50 years. And he told me the other day, he said, "Mark, this is the first time I've been able to say this in all these years. This is the first future-proof technology that I've ever seen." And he was speaking of fiber to the home. And as a company, when we're building new systems, we're building them fiber to the home. The NTIA, the federal government, the FCC all recognize that that technology really meets the challenge and the definition of fiber to the home. So this gives you a good idea roughly of what we're talking about in terms of the build that we would like to do here in this portion of Humboldt County. So that's what I'm going to yield some time here. Back to you, Scott.
I'm good. Joe Ferdoso or Abel, is there anything that you guys want us to cover more deeply? Or Joe, do you want to provide any input?
Hi, Scott. And for the record, this is Joe Ferdoso. I am a contractor with the Nevada Governor's Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology, and have been assisting the county and with this application for grant funds. The only thing I would add is that, when the NTIA envisioned this grant, they really envisioned a situation like what Humboldt County is proposing, where you have a provider that is offering a service to a limited area in a high density area like Winnemucca, and they're expanding that service out to a somewhat lower density area, but with a premium product that's going to scale for the future. I am excited about this grant application. The state and the governor's office are in a position to review these applications before they go to the NTIA. And we feel very, very positive about the potential for this. The other thing that I want to stress is this program is $288 million for the entire country. The Stimulus Act, the Infrastructure Stimulus Act that's working its way through Congress right now, may allocate a similar amount of money just to the state of Nevada. So if by some reason this grant is not approved by the NTIA, the work that you have done in preparing this grant will make you eligible for application for whatever money the state receives in broadband stimulus from the federal government. So the work will never be wasted, but we have high hopes for this application as well. So again, I'd encourage you to support submitting this, and also that knowing that if for some reason it isn't funded in this round, in about a year, there'll be another opportunity to submit this proposal for a larger pot of money.
Mark,
Would it
this is
be-
a rural county. Could you speak as to the service speeds for our board that residents could expect to be able to sign up for as part of this expansion?
Yeah, Abel, thank you for asking that question. And I answered a little bit cautiously because I think people are used to seeing speeds up to a certain level, and it's advertised as being there, and they don't really get that. So I think all of us have had that sad experience, because I'm going to tell you numbers that are going to be, it's going to blow you away, quite honestly. Because of this technology, and understand that fiber optic networking is the primary network that sends the internet and data and even phone service over mountains, across continents, and overseas. So if you can get fiber to the premise, whether it be a business or a home, it's really a technological dream. But we're talking about two speed levels. The first, and these are going to be the same speed up and down. The first is 100 megabits up and down. And then the second tier will be 1,000 megabits up and down. Now, just so you know, the NTIA is asking for a required minimum, a preferred minimum of 100 down by 20 megabits up. So our lower package will exceed that capability with 100 by 100, with the next package up being a full gig up and down, 1,000 megabits up and down. That'll be a game changer.
Thanks, Mark.
Any other questions?
I had one.
Commissioner French has a question.
I'm not sure who could answer this for me. I'm just wondering, right now, currently Zito hangs most of its of the hardwire, so to speak, on poles. Do you contemplate hanging the fiber, or are you planning on burying it?
This is Scott Neff. It'll be a combination, aerial in many areas, and then actual distribution into some of those communities and into the households will be primarily underground. Combination of trenching and boring. So it will be a combination of both aerial and underground.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from any of the commissioners for Scott and Joe?
I
Or
have a question.
Commissioner Tipton has a question.
Yes, this is Commissioner Tipton. My first question is, early on here, did I hear you say that you're working with AT&T and what they have in place now? Or did I misunderstand you?
No, there are, for lack of a better term, there are internet carrier. So the internet service to get into town and then delivered over the Zito infrastructure is provided by AT&T. They're one of the few carriers that has fiber running across that portion. And again, one of our challenges was there are multiple carriers, but getting them to drop speed or drop service, break their fiber, put a local transmit, basically if you think about it as a highway, give us an on-ramp or an off-ramp there in Winnemucca was part of our challenge. There was many carriers going through, not many or very few had services that would, an on and an off-ramp. So we're not working with AT&T on the local distribution, but all of our services that, once they exit our plant, go onto the AT&T network. And again, we're happy that we've been able to secure an east and west, a redundant connection. So that's a huge upside for us, because any outage that we've had, has been on that portion of the network is out of our hands. We can't restore services until service is restored to us. So hopefully the second internet access, if one goes down, the other's up, and we now are able to maintain service while repairs are done to the primary.
Okay, thank you. My next question is concerns Zone 9 and concerns Zone 9 because that's where I live, so I know what's going on there. I see you have that little section of orange in Zone 9. And then the area, the East National that goes all the way out and connects to Reinhardt Lane, there's nothing there. And I'm wondering what happened to those folks.
Mark, I'm not sure where that is, but again, what we tried to do through this process, as Mark mentioned, trying to hit as many homes as we could that gave the density, the population, and the service was really our efforts in here. So I can't really comment on any particular road, why it was or wasn't included, but as we went through this evaluation process, and again, as Mark mentioned, a lot of this was helped by a lot of the groundwork that you've done, getting information on, what a lot of counties just have plots, whether there's an actual structure on it or not. So it makes it really difficult as a service provider. And if you look at the map Mark has up, all the yellow dots on there, your county has been very proactive in, documenting your facilities, what's actually housed, what isn't. And so, we did our best to drill into that. And we've actually sent 2 of our technicians, and again, this grant process was a fairly tight schedule. By the time we started talking, and you do all this design and pricing and network, we had 2 of our network technicians in the area, and they drove out many of these areas. So we were able to, narrow our assumptions and actually improve our pricing, because, being able to look and say, how much of this is going to be trench, how much aerial, how much bore, the cost of those different types of construction can be pretty significant. So we actually had people drive through these different zones, look at them, and give us direct, feedback on the ground. So, that particular area, I can't necessarily say why a road or a section was or wasn't included, but that's what we did for all of these areas and tried to capture as many as we could.
And one thing that I do want to kind of say, and I think you as commissioners can really understand and appreciate it. There are many times when you're doing an infrastructure improvement project and there's always the part next door that you can't get to at this time. It could be because of funding priorities. It could be because of, usually it's funding liability. I served in an elective office in a small municipality here in Pennsylvania. It was really an eye-opener. And I have friends who work in county governments, and the challenge of doing any kind of infrastructure project, you'll always want to say, gosh, we wish we could do this. I'm not saying personally that's off the table always. As Joe had mentioned, this is hopefully the beginning of several opportunities for funding, and absolutely we can look at that area and see what we can do for you. Scott, Scott's my boss. I don't want to step too far out there.
No, and like I said, gentlemen, even in the existing network that we have, Zito's putting more money into there and upgrading it. So if we were successful and got this grant, obviously these are the areas we'd be focused on getting services activated. But once we're there, we're going to continue to talk and be, members and active in the community. So with or without, future grant funding, there's always the opportunity to continue to expand the service area.
And, excuse me, Commissioner Tipton. So if you look at that, on one of those views that you had on the map, it looks like it's already down National Avenue, at least the beginning part of it off of US 95. It was in those first few sections, parcels.
First two blocks, yeah.
First two blocks. So which is a good news. That means you just need to take it down the rest of the road at some point. So.
Well, I think where my question came up was I was looking at the different zones and I saw an orange line going out in the middle of some alfalfa fields. And then not in some residential areas. And I thought, well, what is that? Now maybe I understand there was a power line leading down to those alfalfa fields, so it's easy to attach it to. That's what brought my question up. Sure.
So the question I have, I guess, is where it's being proposed now, those right-of-ways are already secured, or will that take additional work to get some more right?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and we've discussed that. One of the challenges, assuming success in the grant, it goes to deployment, and one of the hardest, longest periods is the utility pole attachments, make ready, those types of things. So we've spoken with some of the folks at the city, county, and whatnot level. So we will need to secure right-of-way agreements, and of course, all of those things, require permitting and drawings and applications. So, we haven't gone through and secured anything. And again, that's why, again, if we're successful, part of what we'll do then is that process. And, it's very possible that as we're doing this, one of those areas that you guys point out, Zito may go, you know what, this isn't part of the grant, but we can pick up or serve 20 more homes if we build this section. And then Zito can make that decision on our own. Of course, can't use grant funds for it, but we can put our money in and do it. So we got as detailed as we could in the time and it was allowed, but a lot of those pieces still need to come together, whether it's right-of-ways, pole permits, all of the easements, any of that still needs to happen as part of this process.
And is that something that your company will do, or you look for? Okay.
Yeah, now we typically will do the design phase, but another challenge, which I don't want to take too much time, but we pointed this out to the governor's office as well. One of the challenges any company faces with expanding broadband services is not only is the timing with those utility attachments and make ready, but also the costing of those. they've gone through the roof. In the last 5 years, I've seen those cost per mile have over doubled because of the cost of the pole attachments and the utility make-readies that they're charging. But in this area, getting contractors to come into the area for the actual deployment, Zito itself will, do all the permitting, do all the application process, but then we use contractors for the fiber construction, the drops, those types of things. And, in the past, when we've tried to get folks to come in and work with us in Winnemucca, that's been a fairly high cost getting somebody to come in and do it. So, it was another consideration that we did build into this grant application and the amount of funds we're requesting.
Okay, and the purpose of my question was somewhat along that line, to make sure that there wouldn't be additional costs the county would incur or additional workloads on our present staff to get this right of ways or whatever else needs to be done.
Well, I won't say that we won't ask for county assistance if it's a county road, a county right of way. We're not asking for it for free, but certainly if we go out and start building this and part of it is county right of ways, somebody's going to have a lot of permits to look at and process and hopefully work with us as a partner to get those done. So, we're not counting on you to do the work, but we do as a partnership, to deploy this, we will be, working with the county to get these things done.
Understood. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Haas. And I'm just going to address that to you, and you guys can address the questions if you would on whoever wants to. In the letter to the state, it says 900 households. In your presentation, it says 796 households. There's more than that here. And so how are you going to address that? I've done some research with the other broadband providers. One of them mentioned that they already had 1,700 homes that they're in the process of going to serve them shortly. And one of the biggest questions we have is that we've had internet here. We're looking for a provider that is going to be able to come in and give us, the broadband, which is a great thing. But we also want to know that they're going to be able to service all of us. I live in an area that is just like the Bermuda Triangle. And the only area that you have in there is a cable that's going down Rose Creek Road. And so there's a lot more to this, and I want to make sure that you're asking for a grant large enough, if we're going to partner with you, that you can go through and complete this, give us the broadband that we want, and have a future in it, rather than having to come back and ask for more money, to expand this.
The areas that we are proposing to serve, we will serve as part of this grant process. Whether the budget, if we messed up, if we didn't ask for enough money, our job and responsibility is to deliver the services to the homes that we committed to deliver services in the footprint that we committed to build. Beyond that, and Mark, I'll have to ask Mark and Abel to address the discrepancy between the 700 and whatever and 800 homes. I'm not sure exactly where that mistake or discrepancy came in, but we will make sure that's clarified. But beyond that, again, as a service provider, when we accept, again, assuming we're successful, we would be committed to deliver the services that are in our proposal at the rates within that proposal, and that's what we're committed to do. As Joe and Mark mentioned, this isn't a county-wide serve everybody application, but it certainly commits us to the areas that we're requesting the grant funds for.
Thank you.
Could I make one comment about that? I guess, and I appreciate that question. That was an excellent question. My question would be, well, what kind of technology is being used? Because sometimes we lump everything into a bucket called broadband, and that's a little bit too big of a bucket. I mean, I can get from one end of State College, I live in State College, central Pennsylvania, using a bike, and it'll work. But it isn't nearly as fast as my car. And if I had a helicopter, it would go even faster. And I hear these discussions a lot, and as if there's parity, and there really isn't. The big question that you as policymakers must ask is, what kind of technology are we talking about? A fixed wireless technology, and I came from a company and we did some of that, and I was involved in some of the designs, just doesn't have the capability and the scalability and future-proof capabilities that we have with fiber to the home. And even the federal government recognizes that, and they've written into this grant future-proof technology. There's very few pieces of technology that can fit into that. So I wanted to share that thought. I don't know if you have more thoughts, guys. Joe, you do a lot of this as well.
Yeah. So again, this is Joe Fredoso. I think a couple of things to answer the question. Again, what Mark said about fiber is absolutely true. There was a study done about 5 years ago from Carnegie Mellon University and the Fiber Broadband Association. And fiber to the home is really the only broadband technology, for example, that raises property values. And on average, it raises them by 3.1% is what they found in a national study. There's a reason for that. It's because it's a premium product and it's future proof. So it doesn't need to be, the equipment that feeds the fiber needs to be upgraded periodically, but the fiber infrastructure is good for the next 30 or 40 years. The second piece is that, I think expansion of a fiber network within the outer portions of Winnemucca and then to further reaches outside the county is going to take, federal subsidies, but those federal subsidies are coming in the form of the infrastructure stimulus, or it seems to be apparent of that. I would say that this is the first of probably a few efforts where the commissioners will consider grant applications for various areas of the county. And we're going to start to get into less and less dense areas as we have those discussions. As you expand this service. But again, I think this is a great one to start with because you're in adjacent areas with fairly high population comparatively, and you're offering a premium service that's going to last for generations rather than needing to be upgraded in 5 years.
Joe, this is Commissioner Haas again. I completely agree with what you're saying. We want to see a better service.
Yep.
We want faster internet. We want sustainability for a long time. That's all I'm questioning. I mean, you've laid out a few customers, but I don't believe it's as many as there is even in the areas that you're proposing to have your zones.
Sure.
So is this all this grant's going to cover? And you did answer it. I mean, the grant's going to cover what you're going to do and then how it goes from there. How it goes from there.
Yeah. Commissioner Haas, I think it's a great, one other thing that I'll add to this is that the best part about these grants from my perspective and, as a contractor with the governor's office is that we're very focused on universal service. We're very focused on everyone having at least the minimum definition of broadband, and that minimum definition of broadband by the FCC is going to rise and probably rise fairly quickly on a more rapid pace than what it has risen in the past. So for example, it's 25.3 today. I think the next two steps are going to be 50 megabits download, 5 megabits upload, and then to 100 megabits download and 20 megabits upload. I think those are the next two logical steps. I think you want to put in place technologies that are going to scale to that additional definition and can provide you universal service. So this grant requires the grantee or the sub-grantee, in this case in Zito, to put an access point, a fiber drop at every home of the homes that they're serving. And any grant that is going to come down the road is going to require that universal service. So again, as I think about this, yeah, you've got the universal service component, but you're also working with a technology that's going to be scalable to wherever the FCC decides to bring that minimum definition, as long as you continue to focus on fiber. As you get up into the northern parts of the county, and we've been working with the county ever since the Broadband Action Committee was formed. So as you get to McDermott or Arvada or the communities up north, there may be some combination of a hybrid solution with fiber fed fixed wireless that's more appropriate for those communities. But anything that we get grant funds for and any service provider we partner with, whether it's Zito or another provider for those northern areas down the road, is going to have a universal service requirement of those grant funds.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for? So Dave, is part of this is in the city, isn't it, or is it all county?
Mr. Chair, no, Dave Mendiola, for the record, this particular project is not in the city. With the exception of that little spot going up US 95. There's a little spot there that might be actually in the city limits, but I don't think so. But so again, I think the main point that I think you've heard today is that this is one project that we tried to cover a number of areas that are growing areas that are budding, and we want to get into those. And just like I mentioned earlier, once you get into an area and you're already, for example, on the poles on that right-of-way, it's a lot easier to expand. So Zito, from the very beginning, from our perspective, from the day they bought the company and came before the Broadband Action Committee, we're very aggressive about that's what we do. We do rural broadband, and that's where we got started, and that's what we do today. And they've been very effective with it. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark or Scott, but they've got a contract with the state of Pennsylvania to provide 911 service for the entire state. So that means they're very legitimate. They've got the ability from a financial standpoint to sustain the system. So it's not going to be a fly by the night thing. And the other thing I would say is that, the current providers we have, I have been a big advocate from day one that we don't do anything as part of a county project that would exclude anybody. I mean, our goal is to give everybody the opportunity to be in the game. And this is not an attempt to do anything except for offer more options for our citizens. And as the survey pointed out, that when we got that back, 339 or 335 respondents is pretty impressive when we sent that out. And that came a lot of some businesses and things like that. So they're looking for options. People want faster speeds. And so I just think this is just one piece in time. And we'll do as much as we can on this one. But I have great confidence that Zito's got some long-term plans to be a major player in Humboldt County. And I'm including the rurals as well, the farther parts north and east. And so I feel very comfortable with them. Again, they came after us and wanted to do business in Humboldt County. And I like to think that, we started this project almost 4 years ago on the advice of the joint city council and commission to look at options for us. And so here we are at a pretty critical point in time where finally, we got some funding that's available that we actually qualify for, and we have an opportunity to work with a company that can provide that fiber to the door. And I think from my perspective, it's exciting. So.
And it was mentioned that there's a 10% funding match that would have to come from the county. Do you see that being outlay of dollars or like more along the lines of
In kind?
Commissioner Cherry?
Yeah.
This is Abel. Zito is going to put up a 10% match, and they're going to add an additional 5% to that as well. So the county puts nothing out of pocket.
there won't be any out of pocket?
No out of
Okay.
pocket.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, also the second item we'll deal with is what our in-kind match might be. Not required, but where we have skin in the game is we can provide help, like you were mentioning earlier, to get them through the permitting process, maybe grant them the cost of the permit and help them in that regard to build this network out. So that's how we would do that.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions?
Mr.
I
Chairman.
just have one comment, if you wouldn't mind. Scott, I don't know if we mentioned, you had mentioned about the diverse supply into the city, but did you mention the upgrades that we're anticipating doing in Winnemucca?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. We wanted to make sure that information got out there, so.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner French. Maybe you mentioned this, but you mentioned that this particular project is going to be exclusive to the county. Is there a similar program being pursued right now for the city side? Because the city was involved with the recommendation as well. Are we talking about a proposal and a separate grant for the city?
Mr. Chair, so I'll start to answer that, and then Scott, you can jump in. I think the city is involved. They have some in the form of what Scott mentioned up front, where they're going to replace the current coax with fiber in their current where they deliver. So they'll get some upgrades in that regard, but it won't be necessarily new stuff. In other words, new areas, to the point that Commissioner Tipton made. But it's certainly, from everything I've heard Zito say to us, their plan is to expand as they can invest. So
basically, the blue lines that were on that map were the existing lines now. They're going to be
Yeah, the blue lines are existing, and that's a coaxial distribution system. And as I mentioned, I think at the beginning of my piece, we are already, in fact, prior to this grant, we were working on, as part of the, getting diversity, two different paths for internet delivery into it. We're already making the investment to begin upgrading that existing network to a fiber to the home network. And that is, there's no grants being sought. There's no external funding sources that we're going after. That is, Zito, when we purchased these networks, as we did this one, I believe 2.5 or so years ago, part of what we try to do is initially upgrade them, and then, as Mark mentioned, the fiber to the home, where we can across, and we're in 22 states, and we are the lucky recipient in the state of Pennsylvania. We just won the state Next Gen 911 network, so we're currently in the process of building 400 additional miles of fiber in addition to what we already have. We will be tying 67 counties together across the state of Pennsylvania, and all of their, Next Gen 911 services, call handling, call routing will go across that network. We're also the state provider for the K-12 education network, where we provide approximately 85 gigs of internet, along with network connectivity for schools to share data and whatnot. So we're not a provider that, just sets on our network and draws what we can out of, what revenue we can out of the infrastructure we've got. Where we can and when we can, we're constantly making improvements to that network. So the benefits to the city, the good news is most of what we have is city. The county hopefully will benefit from this grant because most of what we're doing is county properties, but we're also planning on our own to upgrade the network within the city that exists today. So I hope that covers those questions.
Yeah, it does.
Right, is there any other questions? If not, I think we can move on. If we, I guess we'll need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner French, and I would move that we request Humboldt County, a political subdivision of the state of Nevada, to enter into a covered partnership with Zito Media, a provider for fixed broad-based service, in an effort to qualify for applying for a grant opportunity with the National Telecommunications and Information Administration of the United States Department of Commerce. And let's see, and to give the authority to County Manager Mendiola to effectuate the necessary documents pursuant to this grant.
Okay, I think that should cover it. Is there any other motions on the floor? Any other discussion?
Yes, Commissioner Haas. Commissioner Tipton, did I hear that right on your question that this is supplied by AT&T and they're going to come off of that line? Is
Way
that
I
your
understood it,
understanding?
AT&T has the fiber coming into the community or coming down.
Yes, so
Interstate
AT&T
80,
has a fiber
and
line that runs
Zito
across I-80.
would hook into AT&T's fiber at that point.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So motion's on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Let the record show that Commissioner Hill is not in attendance today, but the motion passes with unanimous, those commissioners present. So brings us to item B, a request to waive fees for permitting and data collection for broadband infrastructure build out by Zito Media in the areas of Humboldt County identified for expansion as part of the NTIA grant opportunity application process for possible action. There's no match funds required, however. The NTIA will consider favorably projects that propose a match of at least 10% of the total eligible project costs. Matching funds can be in cash or in kind, so contributions of permit fee waivers. Access to existing infrastructure, right-of-way access, volunteer labor, computers, any eligible program costs can be accepted as an in-kind contribution. This is for possible action. Now we've touched on that a little bit. Is there anything additional that we need to add that anybody would like to add, or any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, it's Commissioner Tipton. This in-kind and waiving of fees for permitting and data collection, does this apply just to this grant, or will this apply after the grant is done?
This is Commissioner, this is Abel Darrell, Novice County Manager for purposes of the record. This is just for this grant.
So any build out after the grant, then they would have to come ask for
That's
either
correct.
a new waiver
Right.
or for
They would,
paid fees.
and I would, my thought process, and I think the action committee has always said that any one of our providers who need that kind of access to build out their network would come to us and we'll work with them. So it's not just Zito. So.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Mike McDonald, Humboldt County DA. If that is a concern, and to be more specific, any action could specifically limit this to items related to or directly tied to this grant, just for clarification.
Any other?
Commissioner Cherry, I think, thank you, E.A. McDonald. I would like to see that in that. So it's limited only to this as far as our help, getting them
For
in
this
here.
particular grant.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too. I mean, I think the issue is if you're going to have a project, regardless of who the vendor is, you'll have specific parameters and policies within each one of them. That makes it a lot easier.
Okay.
So,
That's easy enough to do in the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that the Humboldt County waives the fees for permitting and data collection for broadband infrastructure build out by Zito Media in the areas of Humboldt County identified for expansion as part of the NTIA grant opportunity application process. That should cover that, shouldn't it, Mr. McDonald?
If we use the word current in that would go to Commissioner Haas's request to make sure it's tied directly to this process only.
For the okay, I'll change the part, the NTIA current grant opportunity application process.
Does everyone understand that? Is there any other?
You okay with that, Tom?
Okay, motion's on the floor. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to item C, a request to approve a letter of commitment from the Humboldt County Board of Commissioners to be included in the Humboldt County's NTIA grant opportunity application submission. This is for possible action.
you want to take that?
Yes, Abel Darrell Nava. The grant application requires a letter of commitment from the political subdivision applying for the grant. So we drafted something, ran it by Joe and Rochelle to make sure it meets the requirements of the grant. Joe came back with some edits, so what's before you is that product.
If I may, Mr. Chair, one question that's come up in our prior discussion has been the discrepancy between the 796 and 900 that is identified in this letter. So we'll have to address that.
Say that again. What was that?
The number of households.
Oh, the households.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
So
Yeah, so we would just need to, any motion would be include an edit from 900 to 796.
And I
Be
believe,
accurate.
believe that was the number that
Yes.
was provided earlier.
That's what I wrote down, yeah.
So maybe approval with those edits.
One more thing on the letter is fix the grammar in it.
Okay. Well,
There's mistakes in this letter that what you submitted to us.
sure.
So I think
Right.
that just to give you a heads up on it, the spell checks will spell the word right, but it doesn't know the connotation that you're using.
Oh, okay.
Look
Thank you for
at
catching
those.
that.
Okay.
Definitely want that to be correct.
Yes. Going to the
Especially
state.
for
Yes.
this. Absolutely.
Any letter going out with Humboldt County's name on it. Yes, I'd like to see them all correct.
Me too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Any other discussion on that? If not, is there a motion? Need a motion on this.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner French. I would move that we approve a letter of commitment from Humboldt County Board of Commissioners to be included in the Humboldt County NTIA grant opportunity application submission.
Okay. Motion's on the floor. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, before we move on to that, in the next item, I'd like to thank Rochelle Paquette, our grants coordinator. She has been putting on in a tremendous amount of effort, and these things, if you look at them, they're intense. and the information they want is detailed, and she is fantastic. If you go through the grant application, I mean, she just does an amazing job of detail and, to your point, grammar, and it's very impressive. Thank you, Rochelle.
I would echo that sentiment as well. I haven't had the opportunity to work directly with Rochelle on this level, and she's a star. Thank you.
Thank you,
Very
Michelle.
good. You probably don't want to talk, do you? You don't want to talk, do you? No, she hates it.
And I want to
Commissioners, this is Joe Ferdoso from OSIT again. I would concur. Rochelle's been amazing.
Great. We know that. And we wanna-
Rochelle, I would like to, say the same thing they are. You do a beautiful job. And especially with the short period of time that you had to work on this one. We've had this for, what, a month at the most? So, thank you.
Mr. Chair, before you move on, could I have Commissioner French just revise your motion on that last one to include that modification of the 900 households to 796?
Okay.
And just put that specific piece in there.
So moved. I will amend my motion as requested.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we need to vote again then? No?
Yeah, please.
So we have a revised motion. Is there any questions about the revision that we made? If there isn't, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. And I want to thank you guys, Mark, Scott, Joe, for the work you're doing, and hopefully we'll keep our eyes open, ears open about any additional opportunities to expand broadband in Humboldt County, not only in the city, but in our rural areas too. That would be great. So look forward to working with you, not just on this project, but hopefully others as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you, everyone.
It's been a real pleasure to work with the county team. They're fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, thanks. So you're welcome to leave if you want. Next, we have on the agenda a Nevada 9580 Regional Development Authority GOET agreement. Consideration, discussion, and possible approval regarding the agreement with the Governor's Office of Economic Development, GOED, for funding of the Nevada 95-80 Regional Development Authority, RDA, in the sum of $110,000 in FY 2021 and 2022, and $110,000 in the FY 2022-23. And to designate Humboldt County and Pershing County Economic Development Officers as the individuals with authority to bind the RDA. This is for discussion and possible action.
Mr. Chair, Jan Morrison, do you want to take this?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, great. This is what we've all been working for the last year. And this, by the way, this agenda item is also appearing on the city's agenda item verbatim. So the agreements, so basically we've been contracted with the Governor's Office on Economic Development to provide economic development services. And we were able, with a lot of work over the last year, to kind of create a very flat organization. I want to point that out. I continue in my capacity with the city and the county, and controlled by the city and the county, and my counterpart in Pershing is the same. The only thing we've done is we've formed a regional development authority in order to contract for those services from GOED, and we will receive $110,000 to be split equally for our services each year. So this will obviously help Humboldt County and Winnemucca County with my position, as it will Pershing County and Lovelock County. So we're both basically doing what we've been doing. We've ramped up with, we're at the table on the state level now. We've already been working with leads and assistance from the state. So it's pretty good. It's a lot of work, but it's one of those things that I think will return a lot of rewards to our area. So Dave, did that cover it for you?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks, Jan. So as you know, we've been going through this process of putting this agreement together, and in conjunction with Pershing County, City of Lovelock, City of Winnemucca, and Humboldt County. And so this is just the final step across the line to get us some funding. So that funding will help us. So 55,000 a year that we'll have. Gina, as we've already talked with Gina, she'll be setting up, may have already done that, setting up a fund specifically for this money that comes in. Humboldt County will be sort of the bank for both Pershing and Humboldt County, like we do for many different organizations. Money comes in, and if we have to spend money, it goes through our voucher system. Money goes out, so they'll have to go by the same guidelines as we do for over 5,000, if it's a capital project, and of course we've set a budget for that organization, and Pershing County will do the same thing. We'll just send the money to them, their portion of it, and they'll deal it through their county as far as vouchering and things like that. So the only thing we'll have to worry about is Humboldt County. But that's what this agreement is all about. It just lays out the way that we're going to do that. And I was going to ask District Attorney McDonald, I know that you were trying to get a hold of Mr. Maher, who actually was the creator of this document, and there might have been some questions. I didn't know if you needed to address those.
No, and we had received a memo from City Attorney Maher that identified some possible amendments to some items to this document. It really is a state or governor's office form, and that is used in other areas, and so he recognized, although there were some items that could be better or by some form of amendment, the likelihood of the governor's office amending their agreement just for us when they're using it in other locations is probably not great. And I agree with his changes as well as the likelihood. The one thing that he did share this morning, and I agree completely, is I think it's worthwhile for us to have on a future agenda item possible discussion and consideration of designating folks that can represent the four entities, as opposed to having to bring, any action to each of the four bodies. It may allow for quicker decision-making process. You can limit the authority of those representatives, but it also gives the board somebody that says, some responsibility that says, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you not doing that? Whatever it may be. But it's, instead of trying to pick up the phone and talk to four boards, which is impossible outside of open meetings, you can talk to, one or more or several representatives, but it I think is something that we should look at, and City Attorney Maher agrees with that wholeheartedly, and so with that, we recommend the approval of the agreement and in that future item. We don't have to have any action today on that.
Mr. Chair, to Mr. McDonald, would we need to do that in a joint meeting since it's city and county?
Or separate? It's something that we can work out the details with the city and city attorney.
Purposes of today, Mike, is do we need to, in our motion, do we need to make mention of the changes you're referring to in the doc?
I don't believe so, because we don't believe that the state will go along with those changes. So I think that approval of the agreement as it now reads is appropriate, and we'll move on from there.
Okay.
I have a comment that, I guess it goes along with what District Attorney has said, limiting that if we were to do something limiting that board's authority, may, and let me back up a little bit. The letter that came from the governor's office in regards to this, there's a sentence in there that brings a little concern to me, and it's in the second paragraph if anyone has it, or from the bottom. It says, in the coming years, we may ask for your support in the areas of climate change and diversity and other targeted initiatives.
That's right.
And if that's, caveat, that's, we have to go along with what everything the governor proposes in those areas in order to get funding, to get approved fund. That's going to be a problem for me. Just for me
I don't
too.
disagree with that. But I don't see any teeth in it either. I mean, in that letter. I mean, the bottom line is that you can say, well, thanks, but we don't really agree with that.
I don't think it fits this. It doesn't even fit into what we're doing
No,
here.
no,
Yeah, it's kind of out of nowhere.
Asking for a favor is all.
Yeah,
And I said, I don't think that's appropriate anyhow, because his bottom line is he's wide open in terms of what he's asking for.
Yeah.
So but there doesn't appear to be any teeth in that at all.
doesn't appear to be. But I wanted to bring it up that it was in the letters.
Yep,
Put it
I saw
on
that.
everybody's radar. Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
So we will need a motion that says that we're going to approve an agreement for me to sign, I guess. Would that be right, David?
Correct. Yeah.
To be,
Um,
Or actually,
Dave?
yes.
I believe it was directed to be, the director of the RDA has to sign that.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Okay.
That's
Yes.
what Joed wanted, was the director to sign it,
Okay.
which would be Jan. And by the way,
Dan?
with respect to that item that DA McDonald brought up, we did meet with Pershing County, the city of Lovelock, Winnemucca, on 3 or 4 occasions, I think, as we were developing these plans to get this RDA underway. And one of the things, it was that Jan would be the director this year, Heidi would be the director next year, so that, we just flip-flop back and forth. And it was also, that same thing was discussed, Mike, about, if decisions had to be made, it should go to that director. And if they needed to poll the commissions, they could do that, or the councils. But generally, that was the idea. So that's probably the way we'll go in that way, because they're going to be the director anyway. So.
Thank you, Dave, and I really appreciate the District Attorney McDonald's input in that. We need that structure. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Is there anything further, any further discussion on this item? If not, is there a motion?
I'm on a roll. Mr. Chairman, this Commissioner French. I would move that we approve the approval of an agreement with the Governor's Office of Economic Development for funding of the Nevada 9580 Regional Development Authority in the sum of $110,000 in FY 2021-22 and $110,000 in FY 22-23, and to designate the Humboldt County and Pershing County Economic Development Officers as individuals with authority to bind the RDA.
Okay. Motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair, one last comment again to Jan Morrison too. This was no easy undertaking. Jan and Heidi have put endless hours into walking through how the structure will work, trying to keep it flat, because all of our other counterparts have an executive director who has a very large salary and benefits package, and they did not want to do that. They wanted to keep it simple. And I think we've derived at something that's good, and we've got great rapport with Pershing County. I think one of the binding agents in that is Kent Maher, because he represents both the city of Winnemucca and then Lovelock and the county Pershing. So everybody gets along, and it looks like it's going to be. The good news about it is nobody has any intentions of making the other do something they want. They're going to be very independent in their thinking and the way they approach economic development, which I think is good.
Yeah.
So.
Good, yeah, right.
Mr. Chair, could I request that we get information on all of those involved in here so that we know who's involved and how to get a hold of them in case we have any questions?
Which item are you speaking about? Right?
On the yeah, what do they call them themselves?
The RDA,
The RDA.
The RDA?
yeah,
Okay.
not a problem. Jen, could you pull that together? I know you've got a list of them, so.
Absolutely. I will do that. Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else from the commission? If not, we have public comment one more time. Is there anyone in the public who would like to provide comment? Did I forget something? We good? Public comment? Once again, anyone in the public? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Going to talk about this letter they're sending out for maps.
Lunch, is that the plan?
I have.
Not